I envision this scene in Jumpin' Jack Flash with Whoopi Goldberg and Annie Potts, where she's screaming, KGB!
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax, HIPAA help is on the way.
Hey y'all, this is Tyler Watson with Specialty Orthopedics in Gainesville, Georgia, and you are listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast.
Thank you for that intro. I'm David Sims of Security First IT and HIPAA for MSPs, and joining me is Donna Grindle from Carden. Hello, Donna.
What's up, David?
You doing good?
Yeah, considering. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. All right. So today we're going to talk about being exposed, one of your favorite topics.
You're so full
So the title is No PHI Exposed. Really?
Really?
Yeah. So we're going to dive into the latest HIPAA violation settlement that OCR recently announced. And, you know, ironically, the settlement with Touchstone Medical Imaging was for $3 million. And it came, you know, just after our last podcast topic, which was, you know, reduction of the maximum penalties by HHS. So it'd be interesting to see what this looks like. But they, you know, kind of give us some spoiler away. They did get hit with a 2-year corrective action plan. But we'll dive into that in today's episode.
Dive in.
Yeah, trust me, we get down in a little bit of a rabbit hole on this one.
I know. We just went, hey, we should stop.
I know. We finally had to just back out. But so anyway, do you have any engagements or places you're going to be coming up?
Engagements.
Like that?
I like it when you say that. Or just places. Just places. Just randomly show up places. Well, when this one comes out, let's see. This is the end of May, so this one's going to come out right around Memorial Day weekend, I think.
Cool.
Yeah, I know, right? So shortly after this comes out in June, June the 13th, I will be participating in a lunch and learn. I know, right? Lunch. We shall lunch together. But I'm going to be talking to some of the local medical practices. Well, anybody that can get there. I will be with one of our IT partners, Medicus IT, and we're talking about release of information and the fees. And, you know, it references one of our previous rants where there's so much confusion around release of records and what you can charge for it. So we're going to try to settle that down, and there'll be a link to register for that event on the webpage. So come and join us.
Cool. And we do want to remind everyone that we have not yet settled on the last HIPAA boot camp of 2019 because, you know, we're still trying to figure out if people on the West Coast want us out there bad enough. So, you know, what do the listeners need to do if they're interested and they're in the Midwest or West Coast?
Well, we've been saying hit us up with an email at contact@helpmewithhipaa.com, but we may be putting together just a little poll or something where people can actually say, okay, I'm going to commit to X if you have it here. And let's just see how it rolls for a couple months. But for now, contact@helpmewithhipaa.com.
Mm-hmm.
Let us know you're interested. We've had several folks hit us up there. So we'll see how that progresses.
Cool.
And if you're going to be at Secure World Atlanta, hit me up. I'm going to be there trying to learn stuff. So I can sit quietly in the room.
Nice.
I know, right?
Yep.
So any other things for our housekeeping, Mr. Sims?
Absolutely. So the Help Me with HIPAA podcast is brought to you in part by Carden, which is Donna's business. Didn't know that.
Oh,
You actually do something other than podcast. So if your business works with medical practices, you know, as a medical practice business associate, you have to realize that, you know what, you have access to patient information and you have to follow the same HIPAA rules as your client. If you don't know how to do these things, you probably need to be calling Carden. They're at 678-292-5001. Let them assess your privacy and security practices to help ensure that you are protected and prepared. You can also visit them online at cardenhq.com to learn more. And hire Donna.
You're getting good at that stuff there, David.
Thank you, ma'am. I try very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's get into exposing ourselves a little bit. So, Touchstone Medical Imaging, Franklin, Tennessee. It was a dark and stormy night.
TMI. I love it that the acronym is TMI because clearly they released TMI.
They did.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is that it says they're Franklin, Tennessee, but they have patients in Tennessee, Nebraska, Texas, Colorado, Florida, and Arkansas. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of patients. I would say somewhere, I don't know, over 300,000 patients at least.
Yeah.
So with the big news that came out, the big settlement, they do their press release.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, this came out shortly after the release that said, hey, we're going to reduce our enforcement penalties. Obviously, they're going to reduce the enforcement penalties when you are trying.
Not in this case.
Yeah, this does not look like trying at all. So it'd be curious to see what it's like really now. Because in 2014, Touchstone was notified by the FBI. Okay, so when the FBI calls, actually, I think they emailed them, pay attention.
But I would have been like, dude, that's a scam.
I know, but then you get one from OCR too. That can't be a scam.
It's just so funny because we tell people all the time the FBI is not going to contact you. It's a scam.
So the FBI lets them know, and then the OCR hears about it from the FBI, and they check it out, and they let them know. Mm-hmm. Look, you have an FTP server that has uncontrolled access, meaning anonymous access. And, oh, by the way, that device is being indexed by the search engines, Google.
Yeah, never a good thing.
Right. So what you can do is once it's been indexed by the search engines, just removing it from being displayed there does not in any way make it go away. Now, does it, David? We just experienced that today, didn't we?
No, there are things and places you can go on the internet that just always keep things there and just never die.
Right. So you got to do a lot of work to remove things once you get it out there. That's why we say once it's out there.
It's out there.
Is out there. So they had this thing out there. FBI saw it. OCR saw it. They let them know. And do you know what? Touchstone initially claimed that no PHI was exposed.
Really?
I know, right? That made me go, stop right there.
Yeah.
Before we go any further, say what? And seriously,
course,
that's what they said.
Yeah, but this was after a thorough investigation of forensics, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, well, we learned later they did nothing. They just said it's no big deal.
Apparently maybe they have a different definition of what PHI is.
Well, that's apparent when the next sentence says, however, during OCR's investigation, Touchstone subsequently admitted that the PHI of more than 300,000 patients was exposed. Let's expose ourselves, including names, birth dates, social security numbers, and addresses. So you know what they did. They said, well, there's no, diagnostic information. There's no medical information.
Right.
That's what they argued.
Yeah, because, it's medical information.
Yeah, I mean, we've had people before say, well, you don't have to secure that practice management part. It's not the EMR.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not tied to the EMR.
Just names and addresses.
Yeah. That doesn't make it PHI. The EMR does not make it PHI. Diagnostic information doesn't make it PHI.
Well, here's the issue, and we go over this in the boot camp day one, is it is not patient health information.
Right.
It is protected health information. Because if you think it's patient health information, then you probably think, well, it's just names and addresses. That's not health information.
Yes. We get to say what is protected.
Correct.
So, of course, that's what they did. I bet you anything.
Yep. But we'll never know.
Well, I know. Well, we might. We just can't talk about it. So you've got to wonder, though. I mean, come on. That they looked at it and said, well, that's not patient information. We don't have to worry about it. How far do you go to ditch your responsibility to protecting people?
That's just scratching the surface of how far they're willing to go or not go. Maybe is the case.
Yeah, and this one's irritating because a lot of times this is medical imaging, so you don't know sometimes that it's a separate business that you're being sent to and who's doing the reads, and maybe they're doing the reads and working the devices at a hospital. So, sometimes you can use these kinds of providers and not even know you're using that provider. And I'm very well aware of that because I used to do a lot with billing radiology charges, which is interesting by itself. But that is where things went horribly awry because they said, not my problem, clearly. So in the press release, they go on to say that OCR's investigation said, you didn't even look at this. So basically, yeah. They told them in May, and according to OCR's investigation, no one even looked at it until the heat came in. So then, by the time they looked at it, of course, it's been more than 147. It was 147 days from the time that they were notified of it on May 9th till the time they actually notified patients and the media.
That's a little past the 60-day mark.
Yeah. That's more than twice the 60-day mark. And, really, really pushing how far you can go.
Yeah, because, this is not a case where you were notified by a patient that, hey, my information's out there. You need to look into this or whatever. This is FBI and OCR notifying you. Dude, you should have dropped everything and got on this problem.
Yeah,
you already...
when I saw this, it's the FBI. Can you imagine us? The FBI's notified. The FBI.
Oh, yeah.
I envision this scene in Jumpin' Jack Flash with Whoopi Goldberg and Annie Potts, where she's screaming, KGB! KGB! Just over and over and over. We would have been doing that. FBI!
Yeah. I would have definitely given it every bit of resources I could have given it. Because OC already knows about it. They're already coming after you.
They let them know they knew.
Yeah, it's like, hey, we already know about this, but we're also going to make sure that you follow the process. Maybe they're thinking OCR notified us, so we don't have to notify them. I don't know.
Well, no, they just said it was there was no PHI.
Yeah.
No, that's not PHI. Now, this was 2014. But you know what? I was doing this work in 2012. Mm-hmm. You and I were working together. We were working and we were trying to educate people at this time because people were making these mistakes. And so not only did they make this mistake, but then they say, well, they failed to have business agreements in place with its vendors, including IT support and their data center.
Oh, man. We've covered both of those. So
Indeed.
So you got the IT providers that, HIPAA doesn't apply to me. I just went in and set up a server, and especially the people that provide data centers. They love to argue.
We're going to talk a little bit more about that IT provider in just a minute. Just a minute. When we get a little deeper into it, because it goes back to this IT provider, and David and I had to do a lot of investigation to learn anything about them because poof.
Yeah, they did the old ninja trick.
They gone. And we hope if you're listening and you do know about this, we would really like to interview to understand what your perceptions were at that time and what your perceptions are now. And, everybody makes mistakes. Maybe that was all it was. But in the press release, it ends with, David's buddy Roger making it clear he's not mincing his words. He never does.
Mm-hmm. You don't have to worry about understanding what he is trying to say.
Yeah. He uses words like must.
Yep.
I can imagine his face when they explain this case to him. So what had happened was, so you go ahead and say what your buddy said.
So Raja, he says, covered entities must respond to suspected and known security incidents with the seriousness they are due, especially after being notified by 2 law enforcement agencies of a problem, said OCR director. Neglecting to have a comprehensive enterprise-wide risk analysis is illustrated by this case is a recipe for failure, which we hear that in every single case, right?
Yeah.
They failed to have a risk analysis that was,
Well, clearly, I mean, if they didn't even think that was PHI, they weren't doing a risk analysis or anything else.
No, because how can you do a risk analysis when you don't even know what PHI is?
Yeah, because step 1 is identify where your PHI is.
It's on Google.
That's just bad. So this seems like a perfect time to share information about Security First IT.
What?
That Help Me with HIPAA is also brought to you in part by Security First IT. If you want to avoid the problems that Touchstone Imaging had, you need an IT provider that truly understands HIPAA. Today's episode has 3 million reasons why having the right IT firm matters. If you're in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, give Security First IT a call to learn more about how they can protect your patients, your practice, and your bottom line. Find them online at securityfirstit.com or call 980-288-5100 for more information.
Yes, we will protect your bottom or your bottom line.
Well, clearly CYA was what was involved here.
Yeah, exactly.
So now that we've made that tie together really nicely, let's talk about, the settlement document is, the press release tells you the high points, but the settlement document's where we generally get all of the details that let us know what really specifically they did wrong. And unlike many of them, this one's pretty straightforward. You know what they did wrong. But the first thing is, it's not just 300,000 patients. It's 307,839 patients.
Mm.
That extra bit is a whole nother major breach by itself.
Yeah.
So I don't want to overlook it. 7,839 patients, kind of being left off. I would say it's almost 308,000 instead of saying over 300,000 or whatever.
Yeah. Who's counting at that point?
Right. But, just that added piece is a major breach. Certainly nothing like 300,000, but I don't want to overlook that. And then we get to that little point about not having a BAA in place with their IT support vendor or their data center.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So it says the settlement list, when they do a list of here's what happened and here's what went wrong and what we found in our investigation. And, for a group the size of Touchstone, they had around 500 people, 500 employees. Okay. We're not talking about a tiny company.
Right.
But it seems like their IT provider was not that big.
Yeah, not unusual.
That's not unusual. As long as the IT provider is efficient and knows what they're doing, they can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it lists in the settlement, it says that they did not have a business associate agreement in place with MedIT Associates until June 2nd, 2016. June 2nd, 2016.
So 2 years after the incident.
Over 2 years after the incident. And then, and according to what's in the settlement here, the details, and this is the part, I read it like 2 or 3 times. Maybe there's something missing in here. because it says, and they continue to engage XO communications without one in place. Continue? They're still doing it?
I
I
don't.
don't-
Got nothing.
I don't know. How
So did is it the? No, I don't know. Just can't figure it out.
Mm-mm. So obviously part of the corrective action plan will be to correct that action or lack thereof. So let's look at the timeline so that we can really see how important June 2nd, 2016 is here. You got May 9th, 2014. They're notified by the FBI that this is out there. And clearly the FBI also notified OCR because on May 12th,
3 days later,
OCR has confirmed the information from FBI. And we're going to assume clearly TMI didn't tell them because so we're going to assume that FBI told OCR. That makes sense. Law enforcement, healthcare. We see something, we notify. And if that was happening in 2014, you can bet it's happening now.
Mm-hmm.
So they confirmed it and they said, oh, by the by, we've confirmed that. You need to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Tick tock, tick tock.
Yeah, no kidding.
Tock. On August 19th, 2014, so June, July, August, OCR sends them a letter saying, hey, we're going to investigate that breach, and your HIPAA compliance program because we've given you time to take care of it. Awesome. One would think.
Mm-hmm.
However, on September the 26th, they finally said, maybe we should investigate this security incident pointed out to us in May.
Golly.
So over a month later, when OCR was asking them questions, they're like, oh, I guess we better do this stuff.
Yeah, I guess it's not a scam after all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so September 26th, they finally look into it and do a proper investigation that should have started on May 9th.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, somebody should have been freaking out in May. And I would hate to be the individual that was freaking out if somebody was. I would have hated to be the individual that was freaking out in May, only to be ignored. But so then it took them only a few days to determine we have a problem and should notify people. So September 26th, then by October 3rd, they were like, oh, yeah, our bad.
Yeah, they started speeding up then. I'd love to know what was going on during those other months. Like, were they trying to go back and forth with counsel to figure out what was going on? I mean, why were they dragging their feet on all this? I want to know.
Because they insisted they weren't violating HIPAA.
Mm.
Once they made that decision that it wasn't PHI, they were done. And that was going to be their argument. Not our patient, not our problem. I hear that all the time.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, which is also not true. Let me just point that out as a added note to everyone listening. HIPAA does not say protected health information of people who are actually your patient. It says protected health information. You are obligated to protect. Period. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. On October 3rd, they finally notified the patients and the media. So 147 days. That's right. 147 days.
Mm.
All right. Then we don't really have a lot of detail of what happened between then and now, except for apparently almost on June 2nd, 2016, they signed the business associate agreement.
Right.
Okay. With whoever Med Associates IT is, Med IT Associates. And go ahead, just Google them and you can see that there's supposed to be a website, or there was one.
Yeah.
But not there anymore. And what are you going to do?
Well, we did a little bit of digging, and we did come to the conclusion that that IT company is no longer in existence. And using some some magic of the internet, we were able to find the old website,
Magic.
which they shut down. Some interesting things about it is that Touchstone Medical Imaging is actually on the website, giving them thumbs up for setting up an IT implementation project, which I'm really wondering is if this the server.
The FTP server.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
And what's that tagline that it said right there at the top? Connecting.
Bridging the gap between technology and medicine is Med IT Associates tagline. And in Touchstone Medical Imaging, there's a guy there, COO. I don't know if he's still COO, but Cleet Madden at the time. He said, Med IT Associates facilitated our assessment of an IT implementation project, which led us into engaging in a long-term relationship that has been very beneficial to Touchstone. Med IT Associates is responsive, professional, fairly priced, and a pleasure to work with. I would recommend them to anybody. Pretty much. That's what he said.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. So, but we only found that on the Wayback Machine.
Yeah, because Med IT Associates is no longer around.
Well, explain what the Wayback Machine is, though.
So the Wayback Machine allows me, or you, if you know how to find it, to pull up things that were on the internet in the past, because everything gets saved and cached somewhere. And so we were able to go back to, I don't remember how far back we had to go to see this, but I think it actually wasn't that long ago. I think it was like in October of last year. There was the last screenshot that it captured of that site. So since then, the site has come down, but as we look at other things, the site hasn't been updated since 2010. We tried to find the CEO or owner of Med IT Associates online, and we did find him. However, it seems like his social media profiles like LinkedIn are not active anymore. They're there, but it doesn't seem like he's participating much in anything.
Yeah. Very little participation.
So I don't know. I did reach out to him on LinkedIn to see if he'll respond. I'd like to talk to him a little bit more about what's going on, but it does look like him and the company kind of fell off the face of the earth.
Poof.
Yeah, poof. Just poof.
So, this could be a story for all you IT providers who believe, you don't really have to do that much and you don't have to worry about it. And if there's a data breach, it's not your problem. It's the client's problem. How many times do we hear that?
I hear it all the time, especially when it's a project. Oh, I'm just doing a project with them. I don't need to do all this stuff. Right. Or just sign the BAA. Just sign the flipping BAA and do the work. No, dude.
All you have to do is sign it.
Just sign it.
You don't have to know what's in it.
But it is also important to bring this to light. Mm-hmm. The incident happened in 2014. The settlement happened in 2019. 5-year span, almost to the day. 5-year span. Mm-hmm. The reason I bring this up is because oftentimes I have MSPs, IT professionals say, if this is so important and we can get in trouble for doing it wrong, then show me a case where MSPs are getting fined and they're coming after MSPs. And my answer is always the same. Dude, this stuff takes a long time. MSPs didn't start paying attention to this stuff until 2013. And so it'll take a while before something happens and makes the news. And then it's going to take even longer before you start hearing about it. So,
well, and the IT company is being hit in some way. Mm-hmm. Since they don't exist, and we won't necessarily know about that.
No, but just imagine, forget all the HIPAA stuff, the HIPAA fines, forget all that stuff for a minute. If I'm an IT company and this happens to one of my clients, and then they're telling everybody else in the community, because obviously they tell people, right? Because they recommended them. So now they're not recommending them. They recommend staying away from them. They're in the news because they didn't mind saying their name here. I'm sure they said it in other places, because ultimately this company, the Touchstone, is looking at the IT company going, dude, we paid you to set this server up. You should have secured it.
Well, and you don't know that the IT company isn't the one that told them it's not PHI. Don't worry about it.
Right. We have no idea. Heck, we don't even know if the IT company said, look, this needs to be done this way and it has to be secured. And somebody was like, I don't care. if you put security on there, I can't get to it from my home, and I need to get to it from my home.
Yeah, whatever.
I mean, you don't know.
Yeah.
And that's one reason why I like to love to talk with the guy and see if I can figure out what happened, and not just make too many assumptions. But yeah, things went badly, and people got hurt.
Yeah, I mean, $3 million is a big fine, especially with what they just announced.
Yeah, and I have to say though, I did chuckle a little bit when I read about the guy saying that the IT company was fairly priced. and the reason I do is I get it, dude. People don't understand that it cost a lot more money to have good IT than to have somebody who's not. And I'm not saying this company's not good IT, but what I'm saying is if you're hiring a company that truly understands HIPAA like our company does, there's a cost to that. And
yes,
and but it's a minor cost compared to $3 million.
Well, not just that, but the reputational issue and all of those kind of things. And, these imaging centers in several states, maybe they own the market and you don't have a choice. But if they don't own the market, there's going to be a cutback on referrals.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And that's a tough business to keep, referrals coming. And now that this has been brought up and it hits the news, more and more people will be asking about it in the industry. Those 300,000 patients were already notified, but it was back in the day before it was, 2016 is when all of that really turned and you started seeing people pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
So they're quite fortunate in some ways that it happened to them in 2014.
Oh, yeah.
Because if it were to happen today and they were still not doing what they were supposed to do, and it's out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know that there's a company out there with 500 employees, and they may think they have what they're supposed to have because IT ran some scans and gave them a report.
And that's why, and this is not the ad, but that's why it is so important to call Carden and have the assessment done. At least if you're good, then you're good. But if you think you might be good, then you'll know you're not.
Well, I mean, we're looking at your IT company.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons, IT companies say to me, well, I've actually had, and David knows, so many call me from around the country. Well, what are you going to give me when I refer all my clients to you? And I was like, nothing.
Yeah.
My job is to assess you. And if you're giving me money, then I can't claim that I'm assessing you.
Mm-hmm.
That I wouldn't trust me.
No, that's a conflict of interest.
Exactly. So I don't take referral, from the vendors that I have to assess unless I've gone through a lot.
Right.
A lot.
And just
to be able and say they are my partner.
Yeah. And just understand there are some sizable companies out there that do just that. They have these IT companies come in and they refer people back to them and they pay the IT company a kickback. And I don't know, dude. I don't know that I trust that model.
Yeah. So we're very, very adamant about that. Had a vendor who I'm working with and they're like, well, we want to refer stuff to you and give you a referral fee. I'm like, I don't want one.
Mm-hmm.
They're offering to give me stuff. If I refer things to them, I don't want it.
Yeah.
I don't want to give you any, and I don't want you giving me any.
Right.
If I'm not taking on part of the responsibility and making it clear that I am doing that we are working in conjunction with one another, it needs to be completely transparent.
I agree.
Yeah, I know, right? So with these guys, of course, they're on their 2-year cap, which we've seen over and over and over. You got X number of days, and then you got to do this, and then you got to do that. There's nothing shocking or surprising. You've got to do and I will point out, because this was mentioned in the settlement, but it didn't make any sense to me. And it probably goes back to what we were just talking about, it says that they failed to conduct a accurate and thorough assessment of the potential risk and vulnerabilities to the CIA of the EPHI that they held until April 3rd, 2014. So supposedly on April 3rd, 2014, they did an assessment of the EPHI.
Well, that doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. And then on May 9th is when they're notified that it's out there to be found. So I'm not going to put a lot of weight on that assessment at all.
I wonder if it's one of those IT company assessments.
It could have been. It could have been. We did a scan. We didn't see anything. So we didn't identify, one of the things in ours, and we go through who are your interfaces? How does data come in, move around, and leave your operation? That's what an assessment does.
Yeah.
So that FTP server, we would have been asking questions about. How is it secured? Who's responsible for it? How can you access it? What are the logins? And you would have found it unless somebody lied.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it is a bad problem within the IT community that they have the misunderstanding and the belief that they run some of these scan tools and spit out some of these reports, and it's a risk assessment. And as a matter of fact, I just had a conversation yesterday with an IT provider. I said, please understand when an IT guy says a risk assessment, that is a very different thing than when a medical practice says a risk assessment. You're using the same term, but it is a very different process. Mm-hmm. It's like if as an IT person, if you come to me and you say OCR, I could be thinking optical character recognition, yep. Right? But if you go to a medical practice, you say OCR, they could be thinking Office for Civil Rights, using the same acronym, talking about something very different.
Or if you really go in there and they go, what is OCR? So happens more often than I would like.
Yeah.
But it's the bigger picture is just like you say, is that there's clearly a disconnect between what a HIPAA risk assessment is, a proper, accurate, and thorough one, and what the scans do. And they give them a list of questions to ask. And it's done in, an hour or two. Mm-hmm. So no, it's not the way we roll up in here at Cardin. We come rolling in and we tell you right up front, you're going to be sick of us.
And we're going to be all up in your business.
All up in it. And it's going to take 60 to 90 days. We want it done in 60. Some people get it done in 30, but it's not often because it's just time consuming to collect all the information, answer all the questions. And we know it's not even in the top 5. We're hoping that the people that are working on it, the responsibility is in the top 5 of their job requirements. We hope. But clearly, this whole approach of we did an assessment April 3rd, yet on May 9th, there's stuff out there being searched, and we say it's not PHI. Well, they're right. The wheels fell off even before they did an assessment because they didn't properly identify what is protected health information.
Yeah. That's the reason for $3 million into your cap.
Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see how well this one goes for them, we'll say, because I don't know. It's sad and frustrating at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, quickly, let's talk about what's really sad and frustrating.
This is anger. This. Go ahead. I'm too mad.
Yeah. Okay. So what had happened was, and this is one of those ones where you just seriously want to put your hands around somebody's neck. So, the big breaches, they make the big news, and we don't hear much about the small ones. But oftentimes it's the small ones that do the most damage to individuals. So this story came out as we were doing the notes for this one out of Kansas City. There's an article at the kansascity.com news source. The hospital in Northeast Kansas divulged intimate private details of a woman's sexual assault evaluation and treatment to her rapist.
That's what the lawsuit says.
Right.
Yes. And months later, after a barrage of harassment, the woman was raped again by the same man.
Yeah, but not only was she harassed by the same man for months, but she was harassed even by the medical facility.
Yeah, the hospital people, technicians there. And so the lawsuit, is pointing out Atchison Hospital, and it's a private hospital. It was an x-ray technician, which made this tie in even better to the imaging thing. But the x-ray technician is accused of disclosing the patient's information to her attacker.
Yeah. So the x-ray technician is female. The attacker is male. It's as you read the story, it sounds like they know each other. I am making an assumption, but it sounds like they do.
And that she told him that this woman, she read the woman's medical record. She didn't access the EHR according to the hospital, because they did send her a letter, by the way. So it's not like the hospital hasn't admitted to this to some extent. That the employee, the x-ray technician, saw that she had accused this man, and because of the rape scenario, the hospital was collecting stuff, and she was insisting that they keep it confidential, which one would expect.
Yeah.
And this x-ray tech goes in and looks at the records and then proceeds to tell the rapist, or the accused rapist. I guess we don't know if the gentleman has been convicted of rape because they're not including all of those details. But apparently, after getting this confidential information, the assailant relentlessly harassed and threatened her through text, phone calls, sent her graphic language and pornographic content, and was harassed then by the hospital staff, basically to keep her mouth shut after all this happened, I'm sure. Don't tell. I know how that goes. And finally, 4 months after the privacy breach, that the hospital sent a letter saying they are, quote, expressing deep regret and they apologize. Yeah. And, oh, by the way, the employee wasn't a member of your immediate healthcare team. That does not make it better.
Yeah. I mean, that's even worse. She had no business looking at anything anyway.
I know, right? You could at least say they were part of your team and we had no idea or something. No.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Their deep regret, let's express the deep regret here. Because after they fired the technician, she then went to work at another hospital, and the place that fired her said, she's awesome.
Yeah, the hospital provided a positive reference and didn't say, we fired her for violating HIPAA.
Yeah. So, yes, you have expressed deep regret. Sure.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, whatever.
No. Everybody's worried about CYA and not the patient. And supposedly the woman was, according to the story, she was raped again by the same guy. I mean, these are the kind of data breaches that you don't really hear about. They don't make the big news. Of course, we have stuff that's monitoring for anything related to HIPAA.
Yeah, because this is the breach of one.
And it had directly things to do with this one x-ray technician who knew how to work the system. Because when they say that apparently she went into some area of the hospital, I think they said the financial or something. I can't recall off the top of my head right now, but she didn't access it through the EHR. Well, you know what? She knew the EHR had a tracking thing that would probably pop that out. So she found another way. Okay, you can't say to me, all the people that say, well, our employees have been here forever and they know how important this is. I see people put, in comments that HIPAA shouldn't exist. It just makes things hard. Everybody knows that healthcare workers don't expose this information. They know better.
Really?
No, they don't. And it's getting worse. It's not getting better. So, yes. Really? We're back to no PHI exposed. Really?
Yeah.
But this one, I hope I only can, put all the faith in OCR getting a hold of this one, turning it over, because now it's in the news, turning it over to the Department of Justice, because this was with malicious intent. And, as we know, HIPAA includes 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine up to that for malicious intent or personal gain exposure of PHI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So as bad as the 300,000 was, it's nothing. It pales in comparison if all of this is true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So, and you have got to start including serious HIPAA violations as an acceptable, especially when it's been proven, and it clearly was proven if they, expressed deep regret and fired her. So you've got to start including these when they use you as a reference.
Absolutely. It goes back to my tagline, and we'll end on this. HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care, people.
Yeah, what he said. How will this woman ever feel comfortable talking to anybody in healthcare again?
I would.
Ever.
Yep.
Makes me want to go and volunteer to go to the doctor with her for everybody. Let me tell you something right now.
All right. So there you go. People got a lot to worry about. Watch out for your VAs, your IT companies, your employees.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
the X-ray tech I'm talking about.
Yeah. Dude, it's got it. It's out there. You better be worried.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's our show for today, folks. Remember to follow us, share us out at your favorite social media site, rate us on the podcast now. Share this episode. There's a lot of good golden nuggets of wisdom in here. I don't care who he is. And remember, for Donna and myself, I'll say it again. HIPAA's not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.